Game on.
Hi everybody, thank you for joining me on today's edition of Glen's Retro Show. I love Retroflag products. They're great. I first found out about them on my friend ETA Prime's channel when they came out with their own version of their NES Classic. This is a great little case. Now the original case only had one real shortcoming. There was no safe shutdown script. I have a video on my channel that'll show you how you can modify this. Basically using ETA Prime's shutdown script, but modify the original case to make that work. But you probably don't have to, because if you buy these cases nowadays, Retroflag has gone back and changed it so the soft shutdown switch will actually work. Retroflag is very good at attention to detail and listening to basically us. So after this product, they had come out with a Super Nintendo case, basically to go with the SNES Classic they came out. And once again, they did a really nice job with this thing. I love it. This particular one even came with a controller. The other one did not. You had to buy them separately. But this one actually did. The controller felt great. The case was great. Safe shutdown switch. Phenomenal product. Now once again, my friend ETA Prime had talked about basically a Game Boy version of a case using a Raspberry Pi Zero. And if anyone who knows my channel, I will throw a Raspberry Pi in just about anything, and have. But I wasn't able to get a case. By the time ETA Prime had notified everyone that it was available on Amazon, it was gone. So a friend of mine, Matt Farmer, put me in contact with Chris, who was with TL Computers, and he just happened to have one of these little cases left, and it just came yesterday. Now I haven't even taken this out of the box yet. I've only seen ETA Prime's video, and you know, when ETA Prime does a video, he's very thorough. But I thought I would do a video as well. And I got the case, and I want to take a look at it and share it with all of you. So let's take a look at this new case from Retroflag, the GPi Case. Okay, so here's what I received from TL Computers. It is a Retroflag Raspberry Pi case that looks like a little Game Boy, original Game Boy. And supposedly it's very easy to assemble if you've never done this before. It's basically you're going to put a Raspberry Pi Zero or Zero W. I would definitely recommend the Zero W just because of the Wi-Fi capabilities inside here, and put a couple of batteries in here. I think it takes 3 AA batteries and a build of RetroPie on an SD card. And once that's all done, you'll have a nice little system here. But let's take a look at the box itself. Looks like there's some features listed here on the back. It looks like there is a USB to a barrel jack connector. I wonder why they did that. All the other products, they had a regular USB micro jack on it. There is a contrast for your screen to change that over here. Looks like there's a headphone jack, just like the original Game Boy had, speaker. They've added additional buttons on the front, and I believe there's actually 2 more on the back that are kind of hidden. A power switch, the micro SD card slot, and the cartridge. And what's neat about this is the Raspberry Pi Zero, kind of really ingenious. Retroflag is very good at doing things like this. The Raspberry Pi Zero or W goes inside the actual cartridge and it slides in place. There's a volume knob and again the headphone jack. So let's take a look, open this thing up and see what we have in here. A couple things to say on the side. It's got a 2.8 inch 320 by 240 pixel screen, stereo headphone jacks, and yes, it does take 3 AA batteries. And I tell you, I love stuff like this. If anyone knows me or my channel, I will throw a Raspberry Pi into anything, and I pretty much have. So if you want to check out stuff that I've done, just look at my video playlists. I've done things that people couldn't believe I was able to put a Pi in. Most notably, a tiny arcade that I was able to fit a Raspberry Pi Zero W in. But let's take this thing out here. What do we have on this side? We have, it looks like, tools, which is always good. We got a screwdriver. Looks like a little ribbon cable and some screws. So we can put that over here. And what else do we have on this side? Here is our USB power cable to a really small power jack. Man, that's tiny. I wonder why they did that. I'm sure there's a reason. And last but not least, they're fully assembled. And I say fully assembled minus the Raspberry Pi itself. But the machine itself is fully assembled. Let's take it out of this here. It's very well packaged. Retroflag's also been very good with doing that as well. Let's take this out of here and take a look at the unit. I'm excited to see this. And there it is. That looks really, really nice. Now this is smaller. We'll do a comparison later. It is smaller than a Game Boy, but you know what? The plastic feels really good. It feels like, it does feel like a Game Boy plastic. The directional pad feels kind of nice. You know, Retroflag's very good with stuff like that. So the case itself feels really, really nice in the hand. It's got a good weight to it. You can see on the back here, there is a game cartridge, but it's actually this whole back panel that'll come out. You see this whole piece comes out, and it has to because Raspberry Pi W and 0 is that big. But that's really neat how they did that. And it's got an expansion slot in here. Now this will not take a Game Boy cartridge. It's only designed for this, but that is still ingenious, and that's how they think. I mean, in their other machines, they found spots to hide extra micro SD cards. Very, very ingenious. And here are, right, these two little nubs here are the additional buttons. So when you're playing, you can press these in the front, two in the back, although they do feel kind of low when holding it. I mean, you kind of hold it. We'll try it out. It does feel kind of low. They probably couldn't go any higher because the interface here for the Raspberry Pi is going in its spot. And of course, here is the 3 AA batteries it would need. I would definitely recommend picking up like E-loop rechargeable batteries than having to go through batteries continuously. But everything feels really, really nice. They got a screen protector on here. Very nice. Now, there's got to be an instructions, and sure enough, there is. And Retroflag's also been very good with their documentation as well. Simple, but direct to the point. So, it looks like they do have a safe shutdown script, which is excellent. They learned, again, from their original unit to put that in there. And I think ETA Prime was instrumental in making sure that, they started doing that. So it looks like it could be a script you put on your SD card. But the building of the unit looks fairly simple. And all the steps are numbered. So 1, 2, 3. So we'll go through all these and put it together. Again, it doesn't look like it's too difficult at all. If you've never done anything like this, it looks like you'll be able to handle this fairly easily. So I'm going to get my Raspberry Pi W, which we're going to need to continue to build this, because without it, it's not going to work. So let me go get my Raspberry Pi 0 W that we're going to put in this machine. Okay, I'm back, and I have here a Raspberry Pi 0 W. Now, just recently, it should be here, I think, Monday, so today is Saturday, my Raspberry Pi 4, and they've done some good upgrades to it. I really hope they do the same thing with these little Raspberry Pi Zeros. Mostly just a little more computing power, because a lot of the stuff I build are tiny, and I can't fit a Raspberry Pi 3 or the new 4 in them. So it'd really be nice if they can bump these guys up like they did with the Raspberry Pi 4. Obviously this would draw more power, but at least give the option. Keep these here with the more power efficient CPUs, and offer us a little more RAM, and offer us a larger, faster processor. I just think choice is good, right? Okay, just looking this over, it looks like they give you an option here, whether you want to use their safe shutdown script or not. So when you go inside the compartment here for the battery, there's a very small little switch in here, and it basically says safe shutdown on or off. I'm going to install this script, so I'm going to switch this over to the on position. So I'm going to put that over there, and we're going to close this thing back up for right now. Now what's kind of nice about it is all the work you really need to do looks like it's in the cartridge part here. You don't have to really do anything to the rest of the case. I mean, it's screwed shut already from the factory. When you got their NES and SNES cases, they were open, so you had to really put the Pi inside it. But now it looks like all the work is done in this part here, and the rest of this machine is assembled. You don't have to do anything to it. So again, if you're not good at soldering and you want something like this, I mean, I paid shipped to get this to my door was $80 shipped, which I didn't think was bad at all for this. Of course, I haven't tried it out yet, but I know the performance of Raspberry Pi 0 is going to be, and just in the feeling and my history with Retroflag knows that this is going to be a quality product. So again, we're going to go into our instructions here, and it looks like we need to make sure we have all the parts here, which I did. I have the cartridge moved already. I have right here, and I'll probably have my friend Adam from DNA Dimension Designs make me a new decal for this here, and make it look a little nicer. So we do need to open this thing up right here, and it looks like there's no screws in it right now, so they're all open. So it's really should just pop apart, or pry apart. Let's get this going here. I don't want to break anything. And there it goes. It comes slowly. Gotta pop it off here. There's a micro SD card slot. There's probably little tabs in here. Oh, there we go. Gotta be careful when you open this thing up here. This is just a little door here for the micro SD card slot. It didn't go flying, but I was able to get it. So the case is now pulled apart, and there are little tabs to hold it closed, so it's not a big deal. But here's, I guess, where most of the magic's going to happen. This is their little PCB that we're going to attach our little Raspberry Pi 02. And normally, when I work on things, you have to solder to these pins, unless you do something that they did, which are these little guys right here, if the camera picks it up. These are actually spring-loaded little pins. So when the Raspberry Pi 0 sits in here, it's going to, when it gets screwed in, compress them and make a good solid contact. And that's it. So first thing we need to do, however, is on this little guy right here, which is the USB, we need to put a little flipper on here, a little I don't know what you want to call it, a little dongle, I guess. So I'm going to put this down for a second, go over here to our little bag of tricks, and we can see there is a very small little piece in here, and we're going to open this bag delicately, because at Glen's Retro Show, space is at a premium. We got to work in very tight spaces and quarters. So here's our little bag right here with some screws, it looks like some standoffs, and this little special connector, which is, I guess, very important, because this is going to, I guess, interface this 0 to their board. So everything on this machine is going to go and travel through the micro SD port, micro USB port, and the GPIO pins. So here is the little micro USB header here, and a little flap. So all we need to do is, if we look at the diagram right, where's our diagram? Boop, right over here, it's C. We're going to simply put this thing into here, like so. And that's it. And this is kind of flips on its own. So the next thing we need to do is make sure we put our Raspberry Pi 0 in the proper way. And you can basically tell how it's going to go in by, you're going to hold this up here. And you can see, just by the diagram, you just got to look at the pictures and see how it sits in there. So this is going to sit on the pins, basically like this. Okay, so there are some standoffs we got to screw in here as well. So let's see if they describe exactly how that's going to happen. You can see here there are some little standoffs and screws we need to make sure we put on. So let's go get started on that. Okay, so we have our bottom shell here. We have our Raspberry Pi 0 with our little header on it. And basically you can see these little metal nubs in here that we'll screw our parts into. And this is just going to sit in here basically just like this. And you can see over here is our micro SD card slot on this side, where this little guy is going to go back into eventually. So I might as well just put it in right now, just like so. So it'll sit just like that, right? And then next thing we're going to do is flip over our paperwork, because we've already completed steps basically 1 through 4 already. So we're cruising along here. Now the next thing we show you in step 5 is to put these little metal nubs to hold in the Pi and make a spacer for their board. And basically, you have to be very careful. Again, Glen's Retro shows at a premium. They're very tiny little screws. And all we're going to do is go to each 4 of these corners and screw these little guys in. Now, they made it so there's actually a screw head top on it, because once you get it down, it's going to be hard to get some of these spots. So I'll have to get our little screwdriver here to make sure they're in. And you want to tighten them, but you don't want to over tighten them. I mean, they're in a metal spot, but you don't have to tighten this down with a lot of force. So they include a very nice little Phillips and flathead screwdriver. So we're going to put it to the flathead. And all we're going to do is, when we put it in, just tighten it. Hand tight. Nothing too crazy. That's good enough. So I'm going to repeat that for the other 3 spots. And be, again, very careful not to lose anything here, because I'll never find it on this rug. So there are 4 of these basically gold colored screws, and then there are tiny little screws that join the 2 boards together. So I'm going to leave the 4 screws, which are very tiny, in the bag, and I'm going to just screw in by hand and then finish it up with the flathead screwdriver very carefully. Usually it's just enough to get 1 turn in. Like, or maybe not even 1 turn. They didn't get it in all the way. Gotta be very careful not to lose these guys. There we go. and then we'll just finish that up again. See, I had a good camera angle on there. Just finger tight. You don't have to force it in too much at all. And we'll put our third one in. Or attempt to. There we go. And again, we'll just turn this in just till it's hand tight. And now our final one we're going to put in. So again, this is not difficult at all. It's basically looking at a couple of pictures. There's not even any words on it. And just following along the steps. And there's only really 12 steps. And it's really just the majority just putting the Raspberry Pi Zero into this cartridge, which again is not hard to do at all. The hardest part is really trying to get this one last spot. My hands. There we go. I'll get a little turn just enough. I think I got it. Yes, we have done it. Okay, so we can see our Raspberry Pi Zero is now inside the cartridge shell, and we have our little dongle here basically. And all we need to do is, here is again the PCB with the springs. We're going to turn it like this so the springs can hit on here. So you can see where there's a little notch on here. That's for your ribbon cable. So you're going to put it in like that and basically just hold it in its spot. And it's actually going to fit right in its spot. The springs are hitting the GPIO pins. And all we need to do now is take those very small screws and screw them in here. I'm going to put this down again. I don't want to lose this. So I'm going to put this down for 1 second just to get a couple of screws out of the bag, because these are very tiny screws. See if I can get one out without losing the whole bag here. You have to get two out. I got two out. So I'll put one here temporarily. Now these are a Phillips. So we're going to take the screwdriver, turn it to the Phillips side. This is even a nice little screwdriver. And it fits in really nice. It's a good fit. I would hope so, being it's theirs. And for right now, I'm going to put these in, but I'm not going to tighten them down all the way just yet. I just wanted to get them started, just so I don't lose any of them. I'm putting them in. And probably the easiest thing to do is to put it on the tip first of your Phillips, and use your finger to hold it in place, like so. And then guide them in to their spots on the case. Again, I wouldn't tighten them in all the way just yet. Just a couple of turns, just to make sure they're in place. And I'll get my last two screws out here. So once that's in, those are all our parts. And that was it. So that bag's empty, and the screw tried to get away. Get back here, you. Still trying to get away. And do the same thing with the other side. And our last screw. So we are like almost done. Except, I just realized something. See? This happens when you don't read instructions. I shouldn't put the screws in yet, because I got to put the case on first. So we are now going to learn from Glenn's mistake, back those little guys out, and even people who don't have instructions with words should be able to follow what's on the graphics here. So I'm going to take the screws back out, because that was a silly thing to do. There we go. Okay, I got my 4 screws out. What we do need to do before we can put the case closed is, this is what's called a zero ZIF, a zero insertion force socket, right down here. So we need to get this into here all the way. Sometimes it might be easier to do it actually like this, just to get that in initially. This might be the hardest part. So you make sure it's pushed in all the way. And you'll know, you don't have to force it, but you'll know there's some resistance to it. Then you got to slide the black tab down, and that'll lock that in place. So I'm going to push this thing down a little bit more. Just make sure that tab is in there all the way, like so. So our ribbon cable is coming around the top, and it is now locked in place. When you press this black tab down, that's not going anywhere. So now we have to make sure, again, we put our little micro SD card cover back in place, and at this point we need to put the cover on, then we put the screws in, if we actually followed our simple instructions that are there. See, and it does click closed like so. And now we shall do what I said before. It was just a test. We'll just make sure the screws fit before, that's all. So I'll put our first screw in. There we go. Again, I'm not going to still tighten them all the way just yet, just putting them in place. And my next screw here. Just trying not to drop these little screws because I'll never find them on this Glen's Retro Show studio floor. They'll be gone forever. Okay, here's our last one. Can I do it? Can I do it? So you can see that's really all the technical skills you needed to do. And if you don't follow my direct instructions and put the screws in before the time, it's really not hard to do. Now that I have all four screws in, again, I'm just gonna make them finger tight. You don't have to make it super, super tight. Otherwise you may end up damaging something. Finger tight is good enough. Okay, that's it. So basically we need to simply program a micro SD card with an image on it. But right now we could still slide it into our Retroflag case. I mean, look at this. That is just ingenious. That really is. And get a couple of batteries. And then we can actually give this thing a try. So again, that's it. You just built yourself a nice little Raspberry Pi portable Game Boy. That's it. Not too bad at all. And this thing really does feel good. Okay, so let me go get an SD card, program it with an image, and then we shall come back. So okay, so we are pretty much ready to go with everything that we have here. The Retroflag GPi case is pretty much already done. There's nothing needs to be built here, which is awesome. You only need to get a Raspberry Pi 0 or 0W installed in the cartridge shell, which, if you follow the directions, which I wasn't doing too well, it's very easy to do. But of course, that was really not a big deal. Just have to put the screws in the wrong spot too soon. I have some rechargeable energy loop batteries. These things are fantastic rechargeable batteries, and I would recommend using rechargeables over standard batteries, just because this thing will probably go through them in about 4 hours, and you have to constantly go through regular batteries if you don't have rechargeables. And then of course you have to simply have a SD card ready with a Raspberry Pi build. Now I'm going to put a link down below to a gentleman who already made a build specific for this case, so you don't have to worry about the display drivers or the drivers for the shutdown switch. Everything's already pre-done. He did a really nice job. So once you do have it set, all you need to do is obviously get it inside your case here, and there's a little slot on this side here to put in your little SD card. If I get it in the right way, it's always hard to tell which way these go in, and I think it's going to be, is it this way? There we go. So I'm going to put that in here like so. Sometimes you don't want to go in too well. I guess I was wrong the first time. Right, the first time. There we go. Okay. So we're going to put it in with the little, I guess the little tab with the SD card facing up, and then you got this little micro cover here, which is very hard to get on and off, which is, I guess, a good idea. Once it's in, but it's hard to get out. Once that's done, all you need to do is pick up your little unit, and it slides in like a cartridge, which is just fantastic. I mean, I love that they did that. That's great. The one thing I'm going to mention real quick is they do have, and I tested this out originally using the tiny power jack here, and I'm going to say so far, it's the only thing I don't like about that is this thing. This was very hard to put in the hole. It almost felt like it was going to break in putting this in. I mean, you really got to give good force to get it in. I mean, once it's in it, I mean, it's solid. I mean, it doesn't move. But I really wish they used a micro USB versus this. I don't know why they did it this way. It seems very delicate, and I think there's going to be anything that breaks. It's going to be not this, but the tiny barrel jack inside there. So other than that, I can't find anything wrong with the build quality on this thing at all. Now I did notice something else on the back here. When I go inside here, you obviously have your stuff here for your batteries and the switch here for the safe shutdown, but there is a micro connector inside here, and I haven't been able to get it to do anything. I'm not sure if that's maybe, I'm not sure what that's for. There's nothing mentioned in the instructions. So I'm probably going to do a later video and see if I can use an adapter to plug a controller in. Because what would be nice on this thing here is not only having a controller here, but being able to plug in an external controller. I guess it takes away from the unit. It's just weird things I think about. So in any case, we got our batteries here, so we're going to put these in here. Nice rechargeables. Here we go. And I can't stress more how good these plastics feel. I mean, it feels like it's an actual Nintendo product. And on the top of the unit here we have our power switch, and of course we have a contrast here for our display and volume control. I'm going to turn the volume up a little bit, and we're going to turn it on and let's see what happens. Hopefully it's going to work. Get a little power indicator light there. There's our single core Raspberry Pi Zero. Well, the volume is definitely loud and clear, and that's up all the way. I'm going to lower the volume just for a second here. So the one thing you have to realize is, unlike with a regular Nintendo, there's going to be a boot up time. As you can see, that took a little bit of time to come up. But they said this was a pre-made image, and looks like we have Atari 2600, Atari 7800, Lynx, Nintendo Disk System, and lower the volume a little bit more. Game Gear, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, Sega Master System, Mega Drive, Genesis, Neo Geo, NES, PC Engine, TurboGrafx 16, RetroPie itself, Sega SG-1000, Super Nintendo, and back to Atari. So I can say right off the bat, the screen looks really, really good. And I've been working with a lot of these Raspberry Pi projects, and this has to be some type of SPI type of display, but it's really, really a nice display. The reason I say that is just because it's going over the GPIO pins, and it looks really, really good. The joystick feels really good, very responsive. Let's pick a system here. I'm going to pick a, because I'm an Atari guy, so I'm Atari 7800. So press A, I believe. There we go. And we'll load some asteroids. I like how the music plays all the way up until the end when the cartridge loads. That's kind of neat. And I fade it out. Let's see if we play some Atari here. There we go. Oops, hyperspace. Careful. There we go. And that's the other thing you'll have to do is you're going to have to, you know, the buttons are not going to be set up probably the way you would think of it intuitively, but those are things you can change in the RetroPie setup. And again, we have 4 buttons here, and there are 2 buttons, one here, which I do think for games might be a little hard, so you have to hold it kind of like this and be able to still press the buttons on the back. I guess there's no other way you really could have did it. Better than nothing, I suppose. But it might have been better having all 6 buttons here on the front, just because it's hard to hold and press those buttons on the back. So if we want to exit out, we're going to press the start and select. That'll take us back out. And I think B will take us back another level. There we go. So we have some Atari Lynx. Let's try some Neo Geo. I wonder how it's going to perform on here. The Zero should be able to do it okay. We're going to find out. Let's try this game right here. But the speaker sounds great. And again, the case just feels great. Display is great. The only gripe I really had was the power barrel jack over here. That's really it. And a wish list of being able to maybe have a USB port where you can connect other peripherals like a keyboard or a joystick if you needed to do so. Because this can obviously play more than just Game Boy games. So there are 2-player games on here. Let's see how we can start this up. Coins. And we got some credits. A little shimmering effect on the display there for a second, but really not that bad. controls feel excellent. Retroflag does such a nice job with their products, and they're not expensive either. I mean, I think you know, I paid $80 for this shipped to my door. I think that is more than, much more than fair for what you're getting here. I mean, the machine is pretty much pre-built. Just have to add your own Pi Zero device to it, which you normally have to do for anything with a Raspberry Pi Zero. They're a little harder to come by than the other units. And the assembly was very easy. I mean, this is absolutely a great product they have. Just a great product. Ooh, I got slammed. The buttons feel great. I mean, they're very responsive. And it's playing Neo Geo, you can see very, very well, at least this particular game. Let's try something else here. Let's go back out. And let's go back. Let's try some SNES. I can find it. I'm probably going right past it. Nintendo, PC Engine. Well, let's take a look at PC Engine while on our way here. It actually will do CD-ROM games. So, my favorite CD-ROM game of all time is Ys Book 1 and 2. There it is. I'm going to hit the start button here. Such a great game. If you haven't played Ys on a TurboGrafx 16 CD, you haven't lived. This is such a great game. Right now the volume is now maxed out. I lowered it a little bit, too loud in my ears. And there's a brightness adjustment here. That's ultimate brightness. And you can take it all the way down, which is kind of nice to give that option.
Once a country so peaceful and prosperous, a country where children were as free as the wind, a country where harmony blew through the hearts of all men. Ys, a kingdom ruled by the wisdom and charity of its 6 powerful priests, an empire watched over and blessed by the enchanting aura of its 2 beautiful goddesses. Ys, the seemingly tranquil paradise, suddenly pulled from the height of its civilization to the empty abyss of infinite isolation. How could such a land of promise simply vanish from the face of the planet? How could such prosperity be forgotten? The legend has been silenced for over 700 years. And now, the mystery unfolds.
Such a good game. Let's try something else here. We don't see the game ROMs work. Go back here. There we go, Super Nintendo. I'm feeling like some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Another great game.
Big Apple, 3 a.m.
Let's have our buttons here. There we go. Like I said, you're going to have to kind of figure out which button to set up for what. Totally awesome. Let me give you some final thoughts of the Retroflag GPi Case. Okay, before I go to my final thoughts, there's a couple of things I forgot to mention. On the GPi Case, the Raspberry Pi Zero is in this cartridge here, and obviously you don't want this thing to come out while you're playing the game. When you turn on your power switch, there's actually a tiny little notch, if I get a shot of that on here. There's a tiny notch that comes out that'll hold the cartridge in. The cartridge itself has a little notch right there as well. So when you put this in and you flick it to the on position, that notch moves over to prevent the cartridge from coming out. So that's just something to note, that the cartridge won't slide out, hence burning out or damaging your Raspberry Pi Zero. So that's a good thing. The other thing I forgot to mention is the safe shutdown button. So with your machine on, like you can see right here, when you flip the switch to the off position, it's going to run a script to shut the Pi down safely. That just makes sure your SD card doesn't get corrupted. I mean, it doesn't always happen. It's not guaranteed to corrupt your card. But if you shut it down in a harsh way, there is a possibility. So when you turn the switch to the off position, you'll see it'll simply run a little script here, and it will do a safe shutdown, powering the machine off completely. There we go. And the last thing I wanted to mention was the comparison of the GPi Case with the original Game Boy. And I did notice something. I haven't taken up my Game Boy in a while, that the Game Boy actually used a small barrel jack that they're using as well. So my guess is they simply were trying to keep this looking as Game Boy as possible. And when you look at the two, aside from the additional buttons on the front there, it really did a good job of making sure they kept the aesthetics of the original Game Boy, including, that power switch locking in the Raspberry Pi Zero. The original Game Boy had that same connector to keep you from pulling out the cartridges. And even looking on, on the back, I mean, they did a really nice job. It's kind of hard to see the buttons there, which is good, but they did a really good job at trying to capture the look of the Game Boy. And the weights themselves are pretty comparable. I mean, I didn't put them on a scale, but just feeling them, the weights feel just about the same. All the curves and everything else looks pretty good. The only thing that's really different is the battery indicator, which is on the screen here, and here it's on by the power switch. So that's really it. It's a really nice job. You can see the size comparison as well. It's a little bit smaller, but that's easier to carry around on one side of the coin. But on the other side of the coin, if you were playing this and trying to hit the buttons on the back, I don't know, still got to get used to those buttons on the back. But overall, I mean, they did a phenomenal job here. Okay, what's my final thoughts of the Retroflag GPi Case? It's almost 99% positive. I mean, this thing for the price is phenomenal. I mean, I got it for $80 shipped. I think that the build quality in here is excellent. The plastic is excellent. The controls, the buttons respond like it would on a real Game Boy. The design of it, the ingenuity of putting the Raspberry Pi Zero in basically a cartridge slot over here. Volume control, display control, headphone jack. It's just great. I mean, the buttons feel really good. The buttons in the back here, I'm not too sure how well it's going to work. I'll do more playing on that, just because when you're holding it like this, to hit these buttons back here, it seems like in gameplay it's going to be a little tough. but they only the option they would have had was putting more on the front, and honestly I think that's probably where they should have put it, in my opinion. The only real downside is, for me, on this device, is that power jack. I have a funny feeling that's going to break over time, although most people will probably put batteries inside here, but I don't know why they didn't use a micro USB there. It seemed like that would have been the better choice to do. But this machine is, I think, well worth it. All of Retroflag's products have been great. The NES clone that they made, the SNES clone that they made for Raspberry Pis, they're great. Their controllers for the SNES were great. And this thing here, I can't speak better about it. It's going to be hard to come by. I know it's out of stock on Amazon right now, but as soon as it gets in stock, if there's something you wanted to do but didn't think you had the build expertise to make something like that, this is something you're definitely going to want. Putting this together is not hard, as long as you put the screws in the right place. But it's an enjoyable little unit, and I think well worth the price. So I want to thank you all for watching this episode of Glenn's Retro Show. If you did like the video, please like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, and no matter what you do or how you do it, remember everyone, game on.
at the Tiny Arcade fan page. Remember, don't admire people too much. They'll disappoint you.
Sit, Blue Blue, sit. Good dog.